Welcome back, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I am your host, Cameron Johnston. He is your host, Tyler Britton. Kentucky goes down into Gainesville, gets thoroughly whopped on the road in the swamp, come out losers 48-20. Tyler, I'm not even sure where to start about this game. I don't even know what positives to take away. There's a whole bunch of negatives. Give me some of the stats to at least help me out a little bit here.
Sure. Yeah, let me see where we can find the positives here. I'm not finding many. Look, I'll start here. Called it last week. I thought, I didn't think we were going to have the juice to go into Florida and get the dub here. I wasn't expecting this, Cam. It was a little bit larger of a loss. It seems like a lot of our team has quit on the game here. Look, 2 interceptions from Brock here. One of them, albeit I don't think it was entirely his fault, but it's been like this all year. It feels like 4 for 13 on third down, 1 for 5 on fourth down when we have to have it. These are moments in the game that really make the difference here. And look, I just want to break down the drives here from Florida. This is how easy it was for them to move the ball on us. They started off with a field goal, they punted, they got a field goal, they punted. Then it was a touchdown, they throw an interception, touchdown, punt, touchdown, and then an interception for a touchdown at the end of the game here. That's what we were dealing with. They were moving the ball with ease, and Cam, to throw in more embarrassment on this, they only completed 7 passes. Let me tell you how many yards that kid had.
I don't need to
259 yards passing on 7 completions for Florida. 259 was 50% completion.
I don't even know how to wrap my brain around a stat like that. He didn't drop back that much, and then you look at it and you're like, man, these are just chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. And then the stats, they tell it how it is. 7 of 14 for 260 yards. I don't even know if that you can call those video game numbers. That might be even crazier than video game numbers.
18.6 yards per pass. You want to know how many we had?
That's per pass attempt, not even per completion. That's per pass attempt.
You want to know how many we had?
I'd rather
5.2. 5.2.
Yeah.
Come on.
I genuinely thought this was one of Brock's better games until the second or third drive at the end of the game where he missed Kamari Anderson and overthrew some throws. But I genuinely thought Brock looked good in this game. Crazy enough, I thought this offense actually looked somewhat solid as a whole. My biggest complaint is our personnel packages. I don't understand who we have on the field when we have them on the field and who we decide to run plays for in certain situations. I feel like Bush is doing a solid job of getting the right. I don't want to say getting the right unit. I feel like he's making the right play calls in some situations, but he's making this like he's got his own. This isn't his team yet. He's preparing as this was like his Boise State team last year, where he's got all the pieces that he wants and he can use them and move them how he wants. Right now, we don't have that. We can't pass protect well enough to be a traditional drop back team. So we try to get out on the move. We try to run boots. We try to run nakeds and stuff like that. And it's just, you can only dink and dunk your way down the field so many times. It's so hard in this league to have 12 and 14 play drives go for scores. Because usually you'll wind up with a holding call, false start, something of that nature, which will kill the drive no matter how many times you're getting 4 and 5 yards a play. It's so hard to do. The only time we had an explosive play in this game was on a flea flicker. You can't have that. Can't be your only source of getting explosive plays or trick plays. And it feels like right now that's the only way we can move the ball with big chunks.
Yeah, even the run game that we've usually been pretty consistent with. Granted, we ended the day with 146 yards, which seems pretty consistent with where we've been most of the season here, between the 145 and 165 mark. But I'm looking at Demi here. He had 10 carries for 39 yards. 15 of those came in one play. I look at Jamie Wilcox, 3 for 33, but 25 of those came in one play.
You want to hear something crazy about that?
Sure.
Remember how we talked about Jamarion last week about how Mark Stoops called him out in the press conference for not being able to tie his shoes and keep his shoes on,
Yeah.
and that's why he's not getting the ball more? His very first carry, he goes for 14 yards and his shoe falls off. I mean, what are we doing? Imagine this is you. This is your first game since your coach publicly criticized you for not being able to keep your cleats on. If I'm him, I'm going to the athletic trainer. I'm saying, hey, give me like 6-7 rolls of tape around my shoes. I want to make sure these aren't coming off until I cut them off at the end of the game. But no, he goes out there and does exactly what we expect him to. He's a big play artist. He can get chunk plays like that. He gets 14 yards, and you're like, oh, man, there he is. And then you look down, he's looking for his shoe, and you're just like, dude, this can't be serious. But that's just the situation we keep finding ourselves in with Jamarion. You can see the talent. It's just these random situations that keep popping up, like not being able to keep your cleats on.
I hear you. And, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about the state of the team a little bit later here, but this is really, it kind of really just shows the difference between some of these players on the team who are going to be playing on Sundays and some who aren't. You know, it's one of those moments you can't have that. You can't have that and expect to play on the next level. And I think if your goal is not to play at the next level, don't get wrong, not everybody's going to get there, but especially at D1 level in the SEC, the expectation should be you're going to play your heart out to try to get to that next level because there's an opportunity there for you as a student athlete to make millions of dollars on the other side. And it's just crazy that that's the case here. So, you know, it's a tough thing. Look, I want to at least show some optimism here. We did cut back the penalties. We limited ourselves just for 3 for 30, and we did maintain a possession for a lot of the game here. We kept it for about half the game, about 29 and a half, or damn near 30 minutes, and 30 minutes the other way too. So I'll take those as our two positives here. But really, I mean, like you said, it seemed like they were just the Gators were just moving the ball against us at will when they wanted to. They were scoring at will, especially once they got their rhythm down. It seemed like the score was closer than it needed to be for the first half. I felt like the Gators really just had full control, but then come second half, they really just took off, and it felt sloppy for me. It just felt sloppy all game. Like I said, some of the turnovers, 3 picks on the game. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
Cam,
a disgusting game in general. Nothing went right. Nothing went well. The defense, I mean, at the least you can say the first 4 drives, you held them to 2 field goals and 2 punts. You'd like to see the offense. We have been good on first drives of the games our offense has. Maybe not punching it in the end zone, but at least we find a way to get 3. After that, the defense just collapsed. I mean, I think you're starting to see how big of a deal not having Max is. We've kind of been able to get by without having him. I think you finally started to see because communication wasn't there. There was guys running wide open down the middle. The linebackers didn't play well at all today or Saturday. And that's what we had been talking about was how much better they were playing than we thought they were. This was a top 5 defense coming into this game. And you allow 48 points to a true freshman quarterback who's making his second career start and a true freshman running back who set a Florida record with 5 touchdowns. That's insane to think about for how good of defense we had been playing. This defensive line was a no-show. I mean, basically the whole defense was a no-show. Defensive line was a no-show, caused no pressure, nothing. Really, the only thing that we got was them making mistakes on their own, like DJ Lagway throwing the ball to Christian Story. He takes it all the way back to, I want to say it was like the 15, and we don't score. Like right now, you're looking at the defense. And you're like, hey man, if you get a pick, you got to score because we don't know if they're going to. And granted, this defense was put in a bad spot with how you mentioned one of Brock's picks wasn't his fault. I mean, it hits Berrien right in the hands. I mean, that was going to be about a 20-yard completion. One of Brock's better throws, drops back, 3-step drop, grips it and rips it right to Berrien, right in the pocket. He just drops it. They take that all the way down to the 2. Of course they're going to score. And at that point, I think that was I think the writing was on the wall, even though Berrien came back. And it's the Berrien Brown experience. It's what he's been doing his entire time here at Kentucky. One play, he's costing your team 7 points. And then the very next time he touches the ball, he's going 99 yards and setting an SEC record. So I just don't know what to think about him at this point. Like, he's an electric returner, but we still don't put him in on punt returns. What's that up with? I'd rather him sit out for 3 plays on an offensive drive and be ready for a punt return than have him in for those extra 3 plays. I think we've realized that he's a lot more valuable as a returner, whether it's kick returns or punt returns, right now than he is as a receiver. And, I mean, basically the Berrien Brown experience is basically how this Kentucky team in general has been this year. Up and down, wishy-washy. You play Georgia to a point. You get destroyed by South Carolina. Then you beat Ole Miss on the road. Then you come lose to Vandy and you lose to Florida. These were all teams that we kind of penciled in at the beginning of the year. We were saying, take care of business, win those games, and we got a chance to do something. And now we're looking at it in the very opposite way. We didn't take care of business with any of them, and now we're sitting here at 3-4.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to think about Cam. You talk about Berrien Brown, the electricity he brings to special teams on kickoff. I do agree. He needs to be out there on punt return as well. You need to get this guy the ball as much as possible. And I think of some of these guys who get to the NFL and they really make a name for themselves starting off on special teams, getting the kick returns and the punt returns. I know Devin Hester sticks out there as like an anomaly, obviously, and just making his career through that. But Patrick Peterson, Antonio Brown, and some of these great guys who really made a name for themselves on special teams. Cordell Patterson. Not that they're not good at their respective positions, but like they're. I mean, obviously Antonio Brown was one of the better receivers in Steelers history, but like Cordell Patterson really made his long dated his career just by being a kick returner, punt returner. He was just good at it. I'm hoping Berrien Brown can be a good receiver for us, but let's call a spade here. Dane Key is our guy. He's our number 1 receiver. He's more consistent for us. He's great, and Berrien Brown can be a good complement guy, but we need to get this guy the ball in more ways, and punt return could definitely help us. I also think maybe more screenplays or out of the backfield plays, just getting him the ball so he can run. He's fast as hell, man. We just got to get him the ball in some space. We don't have to throw I'm good for the deep ball. I'm good for it, but he needs to have more touches near the line of scrimmage too, so he can create play. I think he has that skill set for sure.
I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I feel like we've been trying to get him the ball around the line of scrimmage. We've been getting him those jet sweeps, those screen bubble passes. Right now, he's not making guys miss on traditional plays where he's getting the ball like that. We've ran just regular sweeps with him out of the backfield. Hasn't really worked. I'd rather us just take a deep shot to him. I mean, the Ole Miss game, 4th and 7, you just throw up not a prayer. It was a good ball by Brock, and Berrien had beat him. And you saw how that worked. The flea flicker, that was to Berrien. I think he's most utilized, and he's in the best place to succeed when he is down the field, because then it's just speed. It's, hey, man, I'm going to beat you off the line here. I'm beating you to the spot, and it's just all I got to do is catch the ball and get in the end zone. I think that's what we need to use him on. I think right now we're making his route tree a little too complex. I think we got to simplify things for him. And I get wanting to get the ball in his hands just because it feels like any play can become a touchdown. But right now, that's just not how it is outside of the kick return game. I'd like to see us. Brock's been throwing good deep balls. As long as Berrien catches them when they're in his hands and he's open, they're working. Problem is, right now, we can't really block for that time to get those deep ball shots.
Speaking of Brock here, we're about halfway through the season at this point. Tell me what your thoughts are with Brock here and the offense's adjustment to the team at this point. I feel like we got a pretty good understanding with what kind of quarterback Brock is. What's your thoughts going into really the halfway point here with Brock?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any understanding on how good Brock can be. He's just we don't have this really isn't an offense right now. I feel like I'm watching Iowa play football, but Iowa is winning football games and we're not, is the difference. This offense is terrible. Marcus Cox is a 6th-year senior who can't pass block. Gerald Mincy on the right side, 5th-year senior who can't pass block. Jagger Burton at left guard has been in this program for 3 years now. He can't pass block. I mean, these guys are all solid run blockers. Not many of them can pass block. I don't think Brock's been given a fair shake. I think Berrien's been disappointing this year. I think Jamori Macklin's been a huge disappointment this year. I was expecting him to come in and really kind of take the load off of Barry and Dane to where they could be more of your, down the field threats. Dane's a move the sticks possession type receiver, and he's done really well in that role so far this year. I think he's been one of the pleasant surprises of this offense whenever he can not hit somebody in the back of the head and not fumble like he did the Vanderbilt game. Vandy game aside, Dane's been outstanding. I don't know anything. I don't know what to say about Brock because you can see games like I thought he was very good in this Florida game, minus one drive. I thought he was very good. The Ole Miss game, I thought he was pretty solid. It's just hard right now when the only way you can get him to be effective because we can't go under center right now and do a 5-step drop with our pass protection. So all those plays are out. We can't do just traditional 3-step drops unless it's, we're throwing hitches, flats, bubble screens, stuff of that nature. So right now we're running with like a quarter of the playbook that we would be able to traditionally. And I don't know if that's going to change next year because you don't really rely on freshmen to come in next year and fix that problem. And I don't know if those guys are on the roster to fix that problem either. So we can get more into that when we go more state of the program. But it's hard to write Brock off because he's got talent. You've seen the arm. The arm strength's there. It's hard for him to be consistent right now because he's not getting consistent play around him either.
Yeah, I'm sort of in agreement there. Watching Brock, like you said, there's some plays that you're just like, wow, that was a good play. That's a high level college football play. Borderline, if you want to break it down this way, borderline an opportunity. What could look good on film for the next level. There's those moments and those plays. And I think given the right situation, I think of his play against Ole Miss, it seemed like he played pretty well. He kept the game under his control and he's moving the ball. But like you said, there's been some inconsistencies there as well. I feel like it seems like every game this season there's been, minus maybe the Ole Miss game, it seems like there's been one, if not two opportunities that really shake up the team on offense. I'm not putting this all on Brock either. For example, the Berrien play was right into his hands and they got picked off. I can't put that on Brock here, but the other interception that there's a guy running straight across the field, he's wide open, you just overthrow it. It touches his fingers and then gets picked off. Like I go back and forth. It's like, and part of that is the protection too. So I think he's been really good at helping the run game. He's complemented it a lot. But to your point, I think it's just been inconsistent here overall. I'm not putting this all on Brock. I think, like you said, with the offense as a whole, it's been inconsistent. But I kind of classified Brock as a little bit more of a game manager at this point. Because I don't think he's hit 200 plus yards passing this year, has he? Maybe the Ohio game.
I think the non-SEC games he has in both of those, but I can't.
Did he?
I can't swear to the other ones. He's right. Actually, I want to say he did in the Ole Miss. I think he went for about 230 in the Ole Miss.
Did he?
Game.
I couldn't remember. I thought he went for less.
Yeah, you also got to remember about 60 of those yards went on that Berrien Brown play as well. I mean, the offense in general, we haven't scored over 20 points in an SEC game so far this year, which is awful to think about. Because you think about it, coming into the year, you're thinking of like the worst teams that you can play in the SEC, and you think of South Carolina, Florida, Auburn, Vandy. Those are all on the schedule, and 3 of those 4 we've already played. Auburn's coming up next, and we still haven't scored more than 20 points in any of those games. The best the offense has looked was that Ole Miss game, and they didn't look good, but they just did enough to get the win.
Yeah, and that's going to be a problem. We need to have more offensive power going into some of these bigger games, and we're just not getting that production. And that's where I see Brock as a little bit more of a game manager, because I think of these game managers as someone who can maintain a game, but if your run game is not getting you, 4 or 5 touchdowns in a game, well, you're not going to win with the quarterback play we're getting. And that's, again, kind of part on the offensive line and some of the play outside too. So let me go ahead and transition over to the defense, though. Let's look at the defensive line specifically here, okay? This guy named Deion Walker, inconsistent this year, I think. Tell me about the production he's had for this year. Where do you see him as an overall productive player on our team?
Deion just hasn't taken that step forward that we thought he was going to. coming off of last season. Last season, I want to say he had 7.5 sacks last season, which is insane for an interior defensive lineman to think about. And just the havoc that he caused, play in, play out. You had to have two sets of hands on, or you had to have two bodies on him, a guard and a center at all times last year. This year, it seems like he's still getting those double teams, but he's not winning those double teams as much. But last year, he won a lot of those double teams. This year, it just doesn't seem like, I don't know if we're playing him too much and he's just gassed all the time, so you really only see that effort on like big momentum plays and stuff like that. It just doesn't seem like he is all. I don't want to say not that he's all there. He's not giving us 100% effort. This might be a depth question. Maybe we don't have the depth behind him, so he's just playing too much. We're just not getting the Deion Walker that I personally expected coming into the year. I thought he was going to have, one of those, I don't want to say Josh Allen type of seasons, because Josh Allen, when he was at Kentucky, was an absolute stud. And to get drafted in the top 10, where I think is where Deion wants to get drafted, coming out of Kentucky, you have to be great. You have to be outstanding. Josh Allen won every single Defensive Player of the Year award you can think of. Clean sweep. Had, I think it was 17.5 sacks his senior season. And the Raiders still took Clelin Ferrell over him from Clemson. Clelin Ferrell's on like his 5th team. I think he's in Washington right now. Who even knows what he's doing? He probably has maybe like a quarter of a sack in Washington. They didn't even give quarter of a sacks. But he might have one, maybe, if he's lucky. And that's in a Dan Quinn defense that gets after the passer. But guess what? Our boy Josh Allen, Kentucky Wildcat, just signed a max deal, added something onto his name. Now he's Joshua Hines Allen. But I'm getting too far down the rabbit hole. That topic is for another day. We all play in the SEC, so it doesn't make any sense. NFL scouts, if you're listening, makes no sense. They all play in the SEC. But back to Deion, just got to be more consistent. I don't know if it's a depth issue or if it's just the fact that he's getting doubled more. He's not getting as much help on the defense line as he was last year. Something's changed because this isn't the Deion Walker from his sophomore season.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think about. There's a lot of hype around him coming into this year here, and to your point, like there's times where I look at the play, and he's in the backfield, but it does seem like some of his production's gone down a little bit from last year, at least from the expectation we had coming into this year. I don't think he's being as impactful, and maybe like you said, it is that he's played so much this year. And I'm just thinking myself, if I'm bumping up against one person, I have another person bumping up against me, I'm sure it's wearing me out than if I'm just going one-on-one. So maybe he is getting worn out a little bit, especially down the stretch of the game, but maybe that's a little bit more on coaching. I don't know, but Mark Stoops' defenses have been pretty good. You'd think that there'd be some consistency there. I just feel like there needs to be more production out of them. And to be honest, especially with Max being out, you look at one of your big players like Deion to perform a little bit better and take some of the pressure off the secondary there, so they're not throwing those deep bombs down the middle of the field like Florida was all day.
You hit the nail on the head with Max, an all SEC corner, being out for as long as he has. We've really started to show signs of that. And with Deion, and it's not all on Deion. Let's make that clear. These linebackers didn't play well this week either. Jamin Dumas-Johnson or De'Aaron Jackson. And those guys, we've raved about them all season. They've been great all season. A lot of that is because of Deion. Deion takes up two bodies. It creates nice lanes for the linebackers just to crash into the backfield. But there was no part of this game that went well, except for your kick return game. That was it. Berrien Housed won. He's got an SEC record with 5 now. Hopefully he breaks it before the end. Hopefully he gets to 6 before the end of the season, because I'm not sure if he's coming back next year for a senior season. And I think, we're going to get into a state of the program talk where we can kind of dive more in depth about looking forward to, next year and, getting young guys in to play. But right now it's not looking great.
Sure, but why don't we dive into that a little bit here, Cam? We're now about halfway through the season here. We're talking about the state of the team. If you'd have told me at the beginning of the year that we were going to come within a point of beating Georgia, which at the time I think they were ranked number 1 in the nation, they're definitely top 5. I think they're number 1. And then we were going to beat Ole Miss the next week. If you told me that was a sequence of events and told me nothing else, you would imagine that the record for our team was going to be better than what it is. But right now, we're currently sitting at 3-4 with a 1-4 conference record. Cam, has Mark Stoops lost a team, or what's going on?
The last 2 weeks, the press conferences after the game, he truly seems dumbfounded. Like he doesn't know what's going on. Like the team that he sees in practice all week is not the team that he's getting on Saturdays. So I don't know if that is a top down from the leadership, if that's players not being accountable. I'm not sure what that is. It's hard to put your finger on it when you're outside of the, we're not in the locker room. Obviously, spoiler alert, we don't have those kind of connections where we can see stuff like that. But just from the outside in, it has to look like he's lost this locker room. And that's tough to say for a guy who is the longest tenured coach in the SEC at the moment. I'm not sure where you go from that. We'll see if this team can bounce back against Auburn. I think you can very easily say if they lose against Auburn that he's definitely lost this locker room. And seems like week by week he's losing more and more of this fan base. And this is a fan base that loved Mark Stoops. Most of them still do. But I think you're kind of starting to get to that point where, like how you mentioned on last week's podcast, it might be that Marvin Lewis structure where you've done great things for us. You've taken us to new levels that, we hadn't been to. But it might be time for a new voice. And I think if with a loss to Auburn coming up, if that was to happen, I think that's kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm almost there with you there. I came into this week feeling like the energy was down. Going into the Swamp, a tough place to play to begin with. It was going to be tough to win. I thought it was going to be closer than what it was, but, like I said, it turned out to be something that was much worse than I even anticipated on my end. I feel like we're I feel like we're already there for the season. I think next week will definitely be telling as well. Going to play Auburn here. I still, we'll get into our predictions here a little bit later, but I don't have great feelings going. I can say that I don't have great feelings playing Auburn this week either. I mean, obviously, it would help if we were on a win streak versus a losing streak, but yeah, I think we're just about there for the season here.
Auburn's actually looked somewhat solid in the last couple of games they've played. They've kept their games close. They haven't been able to edge them out. But they're playing more competitive ball than we have the past 2 weeks. Like, we kept the Vandy game close. But we're talking about Vanderbilt. I don't ever want to be talking about a football game where we say we kept Vanderbilt close. That's something you say when you're playing Georgia or Texas, not Vanderbilt. There's still a lot of time left in the season. You still got to go to Texas, to Tennessee, play those games. But you've got to take care of business with Auburn. If you lose against this Auburn team on Saturday, it's going to be very tough to get to a bowl game. At that point, you're talking about beating. Let's count it how it is now. Murray State game is a win. We know that, so we're already at 4 wins. After that, you have to get 2 of the other. You have to win 2 of the other 4, and 2 of those games are at Texas and at Tennessee. So let's just say those are losses. That means you have to win against Louisville at home and Auburn at home. And we've been terrible at home. I don't know who's worse at home than the Kentucky Wildcats. I don't know if it's allowed, but next year, if we can talk to the SEC and play all road games, I might sign up for that because it seems like we play so much better on the road than we do at home. We're 2-10 in our last 12 SEC home games. That's just a despicable record. That gets coaches fired, honestly, is what that does. That type of record. Huge game on Saturday for the program in general and for the fan base.
On the bright side, going into this game, the matchup predictor does have us at a 51 to 48% chance of winning, edging out Auburn a little bit. It's a 2.5 point swing there for the spread. But yeah, it's going to be a battle like you were saying. We have to, just to get a bowl game, for the love of God, can we get a bowl game? We got to win. We got to beat Auburn because it's going to be tough to beat Tennessee. It's going to be tough to beat Texas. So we got to beat Auburn. We got to get the Murray State game. Louisville, can we get that win too? Let's finish out the season strong. That would be nice. I would love that, but it's going to be tough. And I think hopefully Mark Stoops still has the team together. Hopefully they can rein them in off of 2 losses here. But yeah, I do believe that team is starting to swing away from the voice of Mark Stoops a little bit.
I don't want to hear about the spread anymore. Don't tell me the spread for the game or the matchup predictor from ESPN ever again. Because the South Carolina game, we were a double-digit favorite, we lost. The Vanderbilt game, we were a double-digit favorite, and we lost. The Florida game, we were a 2.5-point favorite on the road, and we lost. Don't tell me the spread for the rest of the season. I don't want to hear it. I just want to watch this team come in, play some ball. Hopefully they are supposed to lose by 30. Hopefully, because that's basically what it was the Ole Miss game and for the Georgia game. And those have been 2 of the better games we've played all season. So hopefully, if anybody that makes Vegas sports books is listening to the Cats Talk podcast, for the love of God, please put us as the underdog. That way we can use that to get some momentum to try and come in there and do the us against the world tactics. Because it seems like as of right now, that's the only thing that's working. Because if we're the favorite, you can guarantee we're losing by at least 10.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can look back at the Gamecocks game and go ahead and say that. Yeah, for sure. Sure, just mark us down as the losers for every game moving forward. That'd be great. But Cam, why don't we just go ahead and jump into our predictions for this week's game? We're gonna go. Auburn's coming to us. We're playing at home. Auburn here has won 1 of their last 4 games. We're going in. We've won 2 of our last 5 games. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna have. I hate to say that Auburn's gonna win. I hate saying it, but I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna have them 31-24 final score.
I'm going to say it with you because if I say that this team's going to lose or they're going to get smacked, it's usually when they play better. So I think it'll be a lower scoring game. I still don't think we get past the 20 points of offense in the SEC. I think it's 17-13 Auburn. Auburn comes in, hands us a loss, and you're looking at probably one of the lowest points of Kentucky football in the Stoops era. And you're really starting to look at a negative toll on this fan base. I hope it's wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong a lot this season. I do want to throw that out there. My predictions have not been very good throughout the entire year. So hopefully I am wrong like I have been for most of the season. And the Cats find a way to get a dub against the Tigers.
Yeah, Cam, I'm right there with you. I'm hoping I'm wrong here. I think if we can win this game, there's still hope and potential there to get to a bowl game. So I obviously still want to get this win here. I don't want to throw in the towel just yet. But we gotta get this win here. They're coming out into Kroger Field. Let's take our home back here, okay? We've had some tough luck here. Let's go ahead and just take the home turf back for the remainder of the season here. Cam, before we sign off here, any updates on the recruiting world?
Mikel Skinner, the 4-star tight end from South Carolina, he'll be committing tomorrow, October 22nd at 5 p.m. I believe he's doing it on 24/7 Sports YouTube page, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But it's going to be at 5 p.m. All things are pointing him to the Cats. Hopefully Mikel makes the right choice. And that's all I got for recruiting for this week.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Big Blue Nation, for tuning in to this week's podcast. Hopefully next week we can come in with a little more of a positive note. Also, side note, if you're excited like we are for the basketball season coming up, tune into our next podcast. We're going to be talking about the start of the season here for Kentucky basketball. We're going to have a guest host with us. It's going to be a special guy. It's going to be a fun time, so please tune in, listen to that. If you haven't subscribed to our social medias already as well, please check out our Instagram and Twitter pages. Make sure you give us a like and a thumbs up there as well. Tell your friends and family about us. We're going to be here every week breaking down football, and looks like we're breaking down basketball moving forward too. So please tune in and go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.